Are you disappointed with the quality of your renders from Adobe Premiere? Well, if so, in this video today we're going to be taking a look at the best render settings for Adobe Premiere. What's going on, guys? Chad here from How To Tech, the channel dedicated to helping you take your tech to the next level. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the best render settings for Adobe Premiere. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you've got your project open, and then you're going to select the sequence down here in the bottom, and you're going to use Control-M shortcut, or you're going to go to File, Export, and go to Media. This is going to bring up your export settings. After we get here, we're going to make sure that our format is set to H.264. This is a standard video encoding format, and it's very widely used on the internet. And I suggest this over anything because it's compatible with almost any website I've ever uploaded to. Great video format. And preset, we're going to be making our custom one, so set that to custom. We will be saving this after we're done, and I'll be covering what you can do with that. Comments, well, what I suggest doing is if you guys are trying to use 1080p 60 or 1080p 30, put those here. Is this 1080p 60 or is this 1080p 30 FPS? I'm going to be covering both of those in this video, but whichever one you want to do, put that there so you can remember that. Output name, we're going to be setting this to whatever our video file is going to be, so you can see I've got the best smartphone lav mic video pulled up, and that's what it's trying to output to. Make sure export video and audio is checked so you can make sure that those audio and video tracks do get exported into your final product. Your summary is just going to be showing you, hey, these are all the settings that we've got selected down here, and this is what's going to be going on with the export settings. We're not going to be covering anything in the effects tab. A lot of these are some advanced stuff, and some of them aren't too advanced. They just really don't relate to rendering. These are just things that you can add actually in the timeline. They just give you a final chance of like, hey, do you just want to correct all that stuff now and just apply it to your bulk footage? You can do it. I don't suggest it. I suggest editing everything clip by clip just to make sure everything turns out right. The video tab, this is a tutorial for 1080p, so you're going to want to make sure your width and height is 1920 by 1080. Make sure that these boxes are unchecked because if they're not, they might not let you alter these. The frame rate is going to be set to 59.94 if you're uploading in 60 FPS. If you're uploading in 30, use 29.97. These are just industry standards, and I don't know why they use 59.94 and 29.97 instead of just the whole, 60 and 30, but they still show up as 60 and 30 in every program that I ever edit anything in, and 59.94 always works right when rendering, and I never have any problems with desyncing. The field order, I suggest setting that to progressive if you have the chance. I definitely suggest staying away from interlaced if at all possible. Your aspect ratio, we're going to be setting that to 1.0. Now, there are different aspect ratios that you can set the pixels to, and you're going to start getting stuff like letterboxing and all this other crap. I just suggest square pixels. This is going to ensure that what it looks like here is what it's going to look like here, and that is what you're probably wanting. TV standard, I set mine to NTSC because I live in the US. These are standards for the US and Japan. PAL is for Europe and Asia. If you're in the US and Japan, use NTSC. If you have a problem with it, you can try PAL and vice versa. Profile, I select main, and this is just going to constrain the encoding to not eat up all your resources. Your level is going to be set to 4.2. And this can vary depending on the resolution and the bitrate. So for example, if you're using, say, 4K rendering, and this might probably jump up into the 5s. Render at maximum depth is unchecked. This is kind of unnecessary to use. It does make it look slightly better, and I mean very slightly. Some people might not even notice the difference, and I know a lot of people really won't. And it just really increases rendering times, and I don't suggest it. The bitrate settings, you can use a constant bitrate, but I definitely suggest VBR 1 pass. And the reason why is if you're doing YouTube videos, rendering times can really matter if you're trying to, pump out a lot of videos, or you're just wanting to make sure that you can use your computer within a reasonable time after you click the export button. So I suggest VBR 1 pass for 1080p 60, and I suggest an 18 target bitrate and a 30 maximum bitrate. This is going to allow it to stay around 18, and if a high sequence with a lot of colors and movement are going on, it can bump up to 30 to compensate for all the distractions and stuff like that. Now, if you're using 30 FPS with 1080p, I would say you could probably drop that around to 10 and this around to 15, and it's still going to look really good. The advanced settings, we're not using a keyframe distance, so we leave that unchecked, and VR video is unchecked because this is not a tutorial for VR video. Your audio is going to be set to AAC. AAC's always worked great for me, and it sounds great. And the sample rate is set to 48,000 hertz. And our stereo is our channel for audio, so we can make sure we're not getting mono. Now, if you do have set up for a recording surround, 5.1 might sound pretty good. And you can also change, I believe, the audio format to Dolby Digital, and it might sound a lot better. As far as the audio bitrate settings, I suggest 320. It's always sounded good for mine, and it hasn't really hampered the rendering times for my videos. And for the advanced settings for audio, I suggest using bitrate. Now, we're not going to be covering multiplexer, captions, and publish. Multiplexer just kind of lets you have advanced settings for, say, exporting to like PSPs and iPods, like the old iPods. Captions, I don't even think they give you an option, like here to mess with it. And publish is like, hey, we're going to throw it to YouTube within our application here. And that just really restricts a lot of the stuff that you can do with it. So I don't suggest those. Next, what you're going to want to do is make sure to select use previews, because if you were using this timeline right here and for some reason there are any previews created, this is going to help reduce the amount of render time. I do not suggest using maximum render quality unless you're doing some production level things. If you're uploading to YouTube and you don't have the best system, use maximum render quality. It's going to increase the quality somewhat for scaling. So if you're scaling from, say, 1080 to 720 or 720 to 1080, it's going to help, adjust for that quite a bit. But as far as I've seen, I've never had, substantial gain from using maximum render quality. And I always leave that unchecked to help decrease the video rendering times. As far as all these other settings, I don't mess with any of these, and I make sure this is set to frame sampling instead of the other settings. Last but not least, we're going to go ahead and we're going to save our preset. So like I said, if you had any comments, if you did 1080p 30, make sure to put 1080p 30, maybe even the bitrate in here if you want, and 1080p 60 if you did that, and whatever bitrate. Then you're going to be clicking on this. You're going to be like, hey, we're going to save this. And all you're going to do is say, hey, this is YouTube 1080p 60 FPS. And you could also save the effects settings as well. So if you add a certain lookup table or color correction to that, you can say, hey, every single time I render with this, I want to use those effects. If not, you don't have to select those. Or like with the upload through the publish, if you wanted to always upload to YouTube afterwards, you could select that. I don't select these settings, but after you get that done, you select OK, and as you can see, your preset changed. So every single time you get done editing your video and you go to export, all you got to do is go to YouTube, and it's going to say, hey, we got all your settings for you. Everything in the video and audio tab is exactly how you like it. And then all you got to do is come down here to output name and rename your video file and hit export. So yeah, guys, that's going to be all for this video on the best Adobe Premiere export settings. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, if you have any other video ideas that you guys would like to see on this channel, let me know in the comment section down below as well. Hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't already for more videos just like this one. This has been Chad from How To Tech, helping you take your tech to the next level. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.